Let me tell you about one of my precious people in my life that I am most grateful for. I lived with my parents and my brother who was 4 years younger than me. My parents were as good as gone, though. Ever since I can remember, I have never felt the love of my parents. I was left at daycare center from the earliest time in the morning until 8 o'clock, the last time to pick up children, and my mother always smelled of alcohol when she finally came to pick me up. After finishing dinner with a sandwich from a convenience store, soon after we went to bed, my mother left again. My father would come home from work in the middle of the night, as if taking turns with her, and they rarely saw each other. After I became an elementary school student, it was quite common for my parents to leave bread and sandwiches at a convenience store and not come home for 3 or 4 days. I thought this was normal and did not feel lonely or sad. But my younger brother Lucas was always asking me,
When is mom coming home? Where did daddy go?
I realized that I had really missed them too, but I had only been pretending not to care. I really wanted to spend more time with my parents, and I wanted them to love me and smile at me. I cleaned my room, got 100 points on tests, and waited for my parents' birthday to cook for them, but they never came home and the food got cold and I had to throw it away with my own hands. I had been in this situation since I was a child, and by the time I was 10 years old, I was quite mature, and even though I was still in elementary school, I was mistaken for being more than a junior high school student. But on the inside, I remained a lonely and forlorn child. It was just after winter break of my 6th grade year in elementary school. By this time, my father and mother rarely came back home, only to leave money on the table while Lucas and I were at school. We haven't seen each other for almost a month now. Besides, we had a problem. We didn't have access to electricity or gas. Until now, my parents had done the bare minimum to help us survive without giving us any love. We had never had our electricity and gas cut off even if we weren't there. Moreover, there is a blizzard outside due to the cold wave that has just hit. It is so cold that we are shivering even inside the house, but we can't even turn on the heater, so Lucas and I have no choice but to hide under the covers to keep the cold at bay. It's cold and I'm scared. I thought I was going to die. I really felt like I was at the end of my rope. At that moment, the chime rang. My father or mother had returned. Lucas and I rushed to the front door. But what we didn't expect to find there was a man. Uncle Aiden? It was my father's older brother by a year. He lived nearby until I was about to enter elementary school, and I remember him playing with me frequently and loving him very much. But I hadn't seen him for a while since he was transferred overseas. He said, "Olivia, Lucas, long time no see, you've grown up." Uncle Aiden pats us on the head. The warmth of his palm. I had not felt this sensation for a long time. I couldn't help but shed a tear. I asked him to come inside the house and tell him about our current situation. When Uncle Aiden heard what was going on for me, he seemed to feel intense anger toward my parents, so he called them on his phone and told them to come home immediately. Until they reluctantly returned, he called the electric and gas companies, paid them, and arranged to have the electricity and gas service restored as soon as possible. Then he took us to a nearby restaurant where he gave us a warm place to eat many of our favorite foods. Uncle Aiden became like a hero to my brother and me. When we arrived home with Uncle Aiden, the electricity was turned on and our parents were back home. Uncle Aiden said, "Leaving the house for a month without paying the utilities is not the behavior of an adult with children. What the hell were you thinking?" They urged me to go to my room not to hear the adults, but I was curious, so I listened attentively.
You're in charge of the utilities, right? I don't know.
My mother says to my father. Then,
I told you that when we got divorced, in exchange for giving up the rights to this house, You would be responsible for those expenses from this day forward.
Father said so. Divorce. My parents had divorced before I knew it, without consulting me or Lucas. Divorce. Do the kids know about that? Uncle Aiden asked.
I didn't tell them, so they don't know, do they?
Mother said. I don't think it's right to be so careless. It's a big deal for the kids to sort out their feelings and which side they are going to follow. Then my father said something surprising.
They're going to a facility in the near future.
My father's voice says, without a hint of regret, facility. I couldn't understand what he was saying. Of course, even I, a child, could not understand. I could understand the meaning of facility. I could understand what he meant. But to think that my father and mother would abandon us. I had no idea that we would be treated so poorly. While my mind was blank, my parents were still arguing about which one of us should go through with the procedure. There is no sense of apology or regret at all. They both want to get rid of us as soon as possible. That's what they were trying to do. I'm just a distraction. I'm not needed by anyone.
Children are usually supposed to be cared for by their mothers.
I didn't become a mother because I wanted to. I didn't want to be a mother. I had to have a child because I had to. Otherwise, I wouldn't have registered with someone like you.
I don't want a kid either. I don't want a child from a woman like you.
I wish I'd never been born. If I hadn't existed, everyone would be happy. I don't even know what the point of my existence is anymore. There is no need to leave them at the orphanage. I will take care of Olivia and Lucas. That's what Uncle Aiden told them.
What? Are you serious?
My mother and father asked back and were overjoyed to see Uncle Aiden nodding his head.
It won't cost us a dime, we're lucky.
And you can't forget what you said. It's none of our business anymore.
Are you so happy to put your child on someone else's shoulders? Yeah. I've learned enough about you people to know that you're the worst. If I could, I wouldn't want anything to do with you either. And after he said that, the next day, Uncle Aiden really did ask us to move in with him. Come live with me. Lucas was not going to miss them anymore. Lucas seemed simply happy that he did not have to feel lonely anymore. But I was somewhat reserved and could not be honest with him. But Uncle Aiden smiled and said, I want you both to come because I am lonely living alone. I was able to be honest with him because he smiled and said, I'm lonely living alone. Uncle Aiden's house is an apartment, which is new to me and Lucas, who had been living in a single-family house. He hadn't cooked much, and his cooking skills were about the same as mine as a child, but we enjoyed the time we spent cooking together in the kitchen. On the other hand, Lucas and I often played catch or took him out for a run on our days off. Lucas was introverted in elementary school, but through exercising with Uncle Aiden, he learned the joy of moving his body and became more and more active. In junior high school, he joined the baseball team and was busy going to morning practice every day. Uncle Aiden fulfilled his role as both father and mother, and he became an irreplaceable part of our lives. But no matter how much we cherished him, his time would come suddenly. I became a college student, and Lucas decided to go to high school with a baseball recommendation. Uncle Aiden was overjoyed to see me go on to high school. Then, just then, it happened. Uncle Aiden suddenly collapsed at work, and it turned out that he had a brain disease and would not live much longer. When I saw Uncle Aiden, who is always well and properly suited up, lying there in his hospital gown with a dazed look on his face, I almost burst into tears. He wasn't even 40 yet. How could this have happened? Maybe we had put him through so much hardship that it took a toll on his body. Maybe he didn't have time to go to the hospital. Both Lucas and I thought so, although we did not say it out loud. Maybe we should never have been born after all. If even our kind Uncle Aiden, who sacrificed himself to raise us, would become ill, we might as well have never existed. Uncle Aiden opened his mouth, looking as if he was having difficulty speaking, as if he could sense that we are thinking this.
I am so happy.
Lying in a hospital bed and not looking very happy, I wondered for a moment if Uncle Aiden had lost his mind, but he did not.
Even though I have outlived my time, you still come to see me every day. Thank God Olivia and Lucas are here.
He would smile at us and said so. That one word encourages us. It's not a matter of course. Of course we'll always come to see you. Uncle Aiden smiles weakly and asks,
Why?
Because I'm grateful. Because I care about you, Uncle Aiden. Why do you ask such an obvious question? It was as if we were already parting. I got a little scared and said so quickly. Uncle Aiden said in a small voice,
Thank you.
He then called Lucas over to the bed and began to talk.
Man could live if there is one person who needs him. If you care about someone and relate to them in that way, they will always feel the same way.
It was such kind words, as if he knew our hearts.
If I had cared about Olivia and Lucas, too, and had always done so, you guys would care about me now, too. So it made me feel like I wasn't wrong.
He raised us, not even his own children, since we were still in our 20s. He even gave up his own marriage and love life to live only for us. When I think of Uncle Aiden like that in my mind, he always gives me a kind smile.
Even if I'm gone, Olivia has her precious Lucas. Lucas has his precious Olivia, and as long as you both remember that, no matter how far apart you are, you need each other. So you're not alone.
A warm and big love that loves unconditionally. I was afraid of losing Uncle Aiden, who was such a presence in my life. But we still have to live. He gives us hope again.
So, don't be afraid to tell the ones you love how much they mean to you.
Yes. Thank you. Lucas and I were so relieved that we couldn't stop the tears from flowing. That night, Uncle Aiden passed away. Words cannot express how sad I was, and I cried more than I ever have before. But I will not turn my back now. Uncle Aiden connected me with Lucas, and Lucas with me. I'm with you. Uncle Aiden's funeral was prepared by distant relatives, since his grandparents had already passed away, and among them was someone I did not want to see. Our father. The father who abandoned us. I tried not to look at him, but he came over to me indifferently and started saying the most ridiculous things.
Olivia, you've grown up. Hey, you have your brother's inheritance or something, right? You're going to give that to me. He is my brother, I'm your father, I'm entitled to it.
It was true that Uncle Aiden had left some savings for us. He also took out life insurance so we wouldn't have to live on it right away. But it was all money that Uncle Aiden had worked hard to save. I was at the height of my anger at my father, who said this in a light-hearted manner without seeming to take offense, but since we were at a funeral, I held my ground, kept my head down silently, and ignored him.
Oi, an emotional reunion with your father, right? Oh, you must be Lucas, you've grown up so big.
And now he started talking to Lucas, who was standing next to him. Lucas, who was still in the early grades of elementary school when his parents divorced, must not have had any hatred towards his father yet. I wonder how he feels now in front of his own father. I was curious about this and asked Lucas about his expression, but he remained silent and expressionless. He said,
Oh, that's right. You should come live with me. I'll take care of you, and I'll take care of your inheritance.
I couldn't take it anymore. Do you know what you're saying? You're the one who left us. Don't you feel any shame? I don't have a penny to give you. I shouted at my father, then.
What's with that attitude toward your parent?
And my father tried to hit me.
Stop it.
Lucas, who had been watching silently until then, stopped him. He was now taller than his father, and his father could not seem to shake his arms.
We've never thought that you are our parent. Please don't have anything to do with us. If you harm my sister anymore, I will call the police.
Perhaps intimidated by the polite but intimidating Lucas, my father left the funeral home and never appeared again. It was the first time I was protected by Lucas, who was 4 years younger than me and always followed me around. As I got older, I became more reserved and didn't talk much, but I knew that Uncle Aiden was right and that he cared about me. Thank you, Lucas. He looked at me and nodded lightly, and without saying a word, he stared at the large picture of Uncle Aiden's remains that was displayed in front of him. I know how Lucas feels, even though he doesn't seem to care at first glance. He is the only family member I have ever cherished. I am sure that Uncle Aiden, who is smiling in the portrait, is also smiling from up in the sky.
You did a great job, Lucas.
From the heaven. We will continue to live our lives together.